Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Ryan McGinley today. We're here to chat through all the latest Celtic news and events, and of course, last night's 4-0 victory over Falkirk. Before we get into all of that and all the positive talking points I think we'll be discussing today, Ryan, and just a word from our sponsors. It's Simply Furniture, located in Hillington, Glasgow. They're an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. At Simply Furniture have a dedicated team to ensure that your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. From elegant sofas to statement dining sets, their hand-picked collections offer exceptional value without compromising on style. And if you want to see their range up close, you can visit their showroom in Hillington, Glasgow. And if you mention the Celtic Way, you will get a special in-store discount on your goods. Links below in the description, as always. Ryan, how are you feeling this morning? Obviously, you were at Celtic Park last night. It seemed like a pretty needed tonic for the Celtic support, for the Celtic team, for everyone related to Celtic. What was the feeling like inside the stadium last night?
Yeah, inside the stadium, it was just a very good feeling, a togetherness as well, a bit of a unity between the support and the players and the manager, the new manager, interim manager. It just felt really good last night. It was much needed after a tumultuous couple of days at the club. You're hearing loads of things from everybody, but it was good to focus on the football last night, and thankfully the Celtic team turned up and played some free-flowing football, which was really, really good to see. Yeah, it was a great game to be at, a really good performance, really a couple of really good outstanding performances from certain individuals that I'm sure that we'll get on to. But it was much needed after the past couple of days. I mean, from Monday to Wednesday, I couldn't believe there was only 2 days. It felt as if it was like 2 or 3 weeks in between those, with all the news that was coming out about Brendan Rodgers, about the Dermot Desmond statement, potential new managers coming in, getting linked left, right and centre with new managers. But it was great to just focus on the on-field, not issues, but the on-field work last night. And thankfully for Celtic, they were really positive in everything that they did last night, which was great to see.
I think even if last night was a one night only thing in terms of positivity, because we have a big match at the weekend, and I think that match has its challenges, and that's going to be a difficult fixture that is really in the balance and can go either way. And obviously the result and aftermath of that will be very dependent on what the final result is, given it's a derby and given it's a cup game, all of that considered. But even if last night was just a one night only thing of real positivity and, something to put a smile on your face, I think it was worth it. I think that was just a good night. Who knows whether it's the start of something better, but I just know for one night it was a real throwback to something that I have missed at Celtic, which is just this genuine belief in the manager and what he's doing and everything around how he conducts himself and how he plays football to a degree. He talks about simplicity in football, and I think that was really, really evidenced in the way that Celtic played last night. Celtic much more direct with the ball, having Liam Scales, Cal McGregor less on the ball. I'm just going to throw up something that kind of demonstrates that. And I'm not want to complicate this too much, but essentially this is the pass maps of first in the bottom right against Falkirk, and then in Celtic's last home league game against Motherwell in the top left. And what you're seeing here is the smaller circles of Liam Scales and Cal McGregor indicates they had a less volume of passes in the game overall. And you can see just Celtic being far more direct with the ball and getting Benjamin Negrin into an advanced position to support Johnny Kenny that was quite disruptive to the Falkirk defence. And again, Martin O'Neill talks about simplicity, and this is what you're seeing. This is simplicity, being more direct, getting the balls into wide areas, getting the balls into the box, and having a player there to disrupt the defence alongside a poaching striker. It's not complicated, Ryan, and Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney, of course, over the last couple of days, brought that back to this performance. And again, even if it was only effective on one night, it was still, I think, a thrill and a joy for the Celtic support to see.
Yeah, completely agree. Nostalgia sells in all forms of media, but it certainly sold last night at Celtic Park. And it would be nostalgic for some people, but for other people it would be their first experience of watching a Martin O'Neill side, which was great. It was great to know that a couple of generations got their first fix of Martin O'Neill last night, which was great to see. People were really getting involved in social media as well. It was a much more harmonious place last night, social media, which is great to see. Especially when you take into account the last game against Hearts and how negative everybody was about that result. it was just a happy place to be, both in the stadium, outside the stadium, apart from maybe the protest at 7 p.m. After the game, especially, there was a buzz about the place. You know, a little bit of optimism had returned to the fray, which was absolutely brilliant to see and hear. And yeah, we're smiling this morning. That tells you that we enjoyed last night's game. Just looking at those pass maps, it's good to see that Celtic understood where the danger was going to come from on their own side, and they kept on feeding Sirachi and Tenecti, because the two of them are linking up really, really well throughout the match, and Tenecti got his reward with the fourth goal of the evening. But not just that, the fact that Liam Scales, despite having less of the ball, the fact that he shows that he still had an orange colouring for his on-ball value, would say that he's still effective despite having less of it. What he's doing with the ball is still effective. And then on the other side, both Ralston and Forrest also had orange markings, which would suggest that they were good on the ball. So I like that. Keeping it simple, it was almost like back to basics last night, but it was good to see, and it was refreshing and needed after the way things have been over the past 2-3 days. But yeah, on Negrin as well, I thought he was absolutely. It wasn't perfect by any means, you know, he still made mistakes in the game, but he picks up really, really good positions on the football park, and he was linking people up and really being a nuisance in that sort of free role in the midfield, which was great to see. Could go up, could go back the way as well. I was really impressed by what he brought to the team last night, and overall it contributed to a really good win.
Yeah, I think with Negrin, you know, he gets into great positions. Sometimes it doesn't always come off for him, and I think that's maybe a frustration for people. But I thought last night, just him being in those areas and, as I say, disrupting the game and allowing Kenny to feed off the scraps really is what led to Celtic's first goal. And then he gets the goal as well, which is great for him, and his confidence in all of this too. And Johnny Kenny, I mean, what can be said about that? I mean, he's a guy who has been a fairly maligned figure at Celtic, and despite his young age and despite not really being given a massive opportunity in a Celtic shirt, has found it difficult to really catch fire in a Celtic shirt. A bit of belief from Martin O'Neill, and he's running through walls and sticking goals away and showing striking instincts that are badly needed in this team, but also an indication that he has those inherent. I mean, he'll feel, even if Johnny Kenny does not go on to become a Celtic regular, a great Celtic player, last night was brilliant for him. What an experience for him to get those goals and take them in the manner he did. Exactly what you want your centre forward to be doing.
2 strikers' goals as well. It's not as if they were from long range. He was in the right place at the right time. First of all, picking up on a rebound from Benjamin Negrin. Good. Was it a save or did it hit the post? It might have done both, but it was a good rebound by Johnny Kenny to be in the right place at the right time. And then again, he's at the right place at the right time to feed off of Benjamin Negrin's header to him. And they're 2 really well taken goals, despite the fact that they're from close range. I think he does really, really well with both of them. It'll do him the world of good. I'm sure he'll be feeling pretty good about himself after that. It would have been a difficult week for him as well, because, you know, Brendan Rodgers was the one that gave him the opportunity at Celtic as a first team player. So it's maybe an experience that he's not had before at Celtic. But the fact that he's got somebody that he can work under who's previously worked with tremendous strikers in Celtic's history, if he can learn something off of Martin O'Neill, then, you know, it only bodes well for the future of Johnny Kenny.
Listen, how's everyone else feeling out there? How's the audience feeling? Let me know in live chat, and I'll try to bring in some comments. Obviously, a lot of optimism going around this morning, so let us know how you feel about the direction of the team, about Martin O'Neill returning. It was an exciting night, I would say. It was a breath of fresh air, is what I would say, because Celtic have just been so stuck in this mode of anguish and angst, and even when Celtic managed to struggle all the way to victory, there's a lot of complaining about the style of play and all of that. And I just thought last night the shackles came off the players, the shackles came off the fans, and people were just allowed to enjoy a game of football again. And I think that is that's so crucial. That's really what football is all about. It's about entertainment. It's about feeling connected to the team on the pitch. It's about enjoying what you're seeing in the product on offer. And I just felt that was on full display. Hazel Finn saying, if you haven't watched the Martin O'Neill post-match interview, you just have to. Genius. I mean, his full press conference is up on the Celtic YouTube channel, and I do agree that people should watch that if they haven't. Martin O'Neill just on top form, and
Yeah.
Just doing an impression of Marcello Sirace and saying James Forrest is as old as he is, and saying he passed his 11 plus exams at the age of 48, and lots of one-liners, which is very Martin O'Neill. You know, he's a self-deprecating, humorous man. But I think his point last night was, look, Celtic have been in a rut of late. Why don't we just make this simple? Tell people, the people who can create chances, to go and create chances. The people who are charged with winning the ball back, go and win the ball back. In Martin O'Neill's mind, it is really as simple as that, Ryan. That is just his philosophy. He's spoken extensively about the use of analytics and data in football and how he doesn't like that. For him, football is a very simple game. And again, that's what he brought back to Celtic last night when you hear him speak.
Yeah, and I'm quite happy, and it would seem as if that there's certain roles that are getting delegated to certain members of the coaching staff. When it comes to analytical stuff, you would assume, and it's only an assumption, but you would assume that Sean Maloney will be all over that. Martin O'Neill will be used as this kind of figurehead role, the leader of the coaching group. But what a leader to have. Just on the press conference last night, I was listening to it on the way back to my car after the game, and I found myself smiling with a lot of the comments that he was making. A much needed injection of positivity after a difficult couple of days for the club. I thought that he did that maybe to a lesser extent in his press conference, but after the game last night, he was on top form. You can tell that he really enjoyed every minute of it. I love that he's talking about the fact that, you know, he was having coffee in Chelsea on Monday, and then in his wildest dreams he couldn't believe it would be the last place that he thought he would have been on Wednesday night, in the dugout managing Celtic. That's just honesty and humility at its best, in that self-deprecating manner that we know of Martin O'Neill. Yeah, I would urge anybody to read the Q&A that's on the Celtic Way website, of course, but also watch the video that's on Celtic's YouTube. Just very, very entertaining. And you might catch yourself smiling one or two times when listening to him. So if we're like that, watching him, how will the players be feeling having somebody like Martin O'Neill, even just for an interim period, but coming into the dressing room, into Lennoxtown, into Celtic Park, and injecting a wee bit of much needed positivity around the place. I'm sure they'll be on cloud nine after last night.
Yeah, and while the Martin O'Neill experience is new for people, it's like, unfortunately, I am of the age where I remember his first spell in charge, Ryan, and I say that because I'm getting a bit older. And I remember Martin O'Neill just being appointment viewing in the same way that Ange was to an extent, but with more humour. You know, Ange was more combative and brusque with the media, and that was fine, and that, you know, that also inspires people and gets people on board. Martin O'Neill had his moments with the media too. Don't get me wrong. It was never all sunshine and roses with Martin O'Neill and the press. But what I'm saying is, you used to go to the game. I used to go to the game, and when you finished the game, you would get back to the car as quickly as possible because you would want to hear Martin O'Neill on the radio. And that was our routine. That was the way we did it. And it was necessary to get back to that car as quickly as possible so you could hear what Martin O'Neill had to say, because everything he had to say was just gospel, really, literally gospel. And that's how Martin was in his first spell at Celtic. And again, last night was just a wee reminder of that. It was just a wee flavour of that, a wee touch of that. That was badly needed for myself as much as anyone, because listen, I've been pretty down about Celtic over the last wee while. I think anyone who's been watching the videos will know that. But I think anyone who's been watching me for a number of years will know that I'm not a negative individual. And I actually enjoy being positive about Celtic and optimistic about Celtic. And so for it to be so bad and wrong and concerning for so long, and this isn't a slight against Brendan Rodgers, but because Brendan Rodgers had become so beleaguered towards the end at Celtic, his press conferences were a drag as well. You know, it was difficult to get through those sometimes because while what he was saying was obviously, some of it was newsworthy, none of it was particularly convincing, and he just didn't seem convinced in himself and the kind of job that he was doing and the support he was being given at Celtic. And it was a negative experience listening to Brendan Rodgers for the last few months. And again, that's not a criticism of Brendan Rodgers. I think that's just the reality of the situation he was in. But again, to then have Martin O'Neill coming in and laughing and joking and having a good time and putting that team in the park and having the team play in that manner, as I say, breath of fresh air is the way I described it in my own mind. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. And challenge ahead, Ryan, is Rangers. And listen, I'm under no illusion. I don't think suddenly Celtic are a world-beaten side and Celtic are a way to go on a tearing run to tear up the Scottish Premiership and Europe. But what I know is that there's now a belief that Celtic are at least prepared somewhat for this derby on Sunday, whereas after the defeat against Hearts last Sunday, that wasn't the case. Everyone was dreading this coming week, and now everyone's looking forward to this game on Sunday again.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise that Celtic had that midweek game at home as well. Just the way that the way that everything's kind of fallen into place. I'm glad that they had that midweek game, because imagine going from Hearts to Rangers and bringing in an interim manager. There would be so much uncertainty around the place. How would Celtic play? We've actually had a little glimpse of how Celtic will play. They might change it up against Rangers, because Rangers are a better side than Falkirk, you would say. But we've caught a glimpse of what Martin O'Neill 2.0's Celtic 2.0 is going to be like, and it seems that the team is going to be there. Everybody's going to be there for each other. There's a togetherness. I noticed that as well when the first goal went in. I actually have quite a good vantage point to where Celtic celebrate their goals, just in that corner where the Green Brigade and the Ultras groups are. All the players were over there celebrating. This is a squad that's united despite everything that's happened over the past couple of days. I was seeing players going off individually and celebrating in their own unique way. I saw Tonetki kissing the badge in front of the Ultras, which was absolutely brilliant to see as well. And it shows that he's locked in and ready for whatever challenge comes for him. Great to see him get his first goal at Celtic Park last night, of course. But the fact that the crowd are celebrating, there was wee moments last night as well, and I mentioned this to Tony. There was a sliding tackle from Austin Trusty early on in the game that set the tone as a whole. The crowd celebrated it almost as if it was a goal, which was brilliant. Maybe not as far as that, but there was the decibel levels rose ever so slightly when Austin Trusty put in that crunching tackle. There was also a moment where Callum McGregor wins possession. I think it was in the second half, and he sort of punches the air in celebration. These moments of togetherness, you can tell that they're locked in and they're ready, and they're concentrated to whatever Martin O'Neill wants them to do. And that's a good sign considering everything that's happened. I'm glad to see that there's that togetherness in the squad, and also a hunger to really push on and try and succeed this season, which I was worried about after Sunday.
Yeah, and I think there's a fight that's going to be taken to Rangers, I think, on Sunday. Everything you're talking about there and alluding to there is an indication of that, and I'm very interested to see how that plays out in the day. I just thought Callum McGregor looked like he had something about him again. Again, Callum McGregor to me has just cut a figure that he seemed under a cloud of something. And we know McGregor wasn't particularly happy with the way the transfer window panned out, because he said so after the close of it. But just everything that's been going on at Celtic, he just looks like he's had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And again, last night, as you said there, he didn't. And he played with a freedom too. And because he wasn't having to be such that pivot point in the middle of the park in terms of every bit of possession goes through him, whether it's from the wingers, the centre-backs, the full-backs, everything goes through Callum McGregor. Because he didn't have that burden, it freed up his game as well, and he was getting further forward too, and he was actually being more direct with the ball as well. There's a comment here from Brown Warrior, Martin at the tactics board, right boys, you can pass it 300 times across the back four and midfield and spend 20 minutes confusing them, or alternatively you can look up and forward and send it to feet in one. And listen, that's what Celtic were doing last night. They were trying to turn Falkirk and give them something to think about before they get set in their own defensive lines. And Falkirk aren't the most defensively minded team of all time. We know that. So how this plays out against teams who play much further back and have a much deeper defensive line, we don't really know. But it was Celtic's intent that is giving people joy this morning. It's not really the fact that it was Falkirk that they beat. And I think this is a good point, because while the Rodgers system or whatever was working, it was tried to pick apart a team and confuse teams. What I think had been happening in recent weeks is Celtic had started to confuse themselves and overthink it themselves, and getting caught in these passing lanes that really led nowhere, because they just didn't really have the cutting edge that is required in a Brendan Rodgers team. We know he's so reliant on really explosive phases of play in the final third that just wasn't apparent in this team. You have to go back to be a more simple style of team, and while in the long term it may not pay off, again, in the short term, this is exactly what Celtic need.
Yep, I can completely agree. There was no horseshoe in sight last night, which was becoming a bit of a regular feature, unfortunately, this season, where Celtic were just passing it around from the wing to the midfield and vice versa, without really going anywhere, keeping possession of the ball. The possession stats were lower last night, but they were being more meaningful with the possession that they had, and they were actually making things happen. Their expected goals was incredible last night. I'm sure you'll have the exact number to hand, but they were more effective and meaningful with what they were doing, rather than just having possession for possession's sake, which was really good last night. Look, listen, Celtic should have the lion's share of possession at home, because they're Celtic, because they've got better players, because they've got home court advantage as well. But as long as they're doing things with the ball as well, and that seemed to be the case last night. Everything that they were doing on the ball, or certainly most of it, had a purpose. You could see where the next pass was going, the next phase of play, where the next position, or where the next carrier of the ball was going to be. So seeing that last night was really, it was exactly what the doctor ordered, is what I would say, after the turgidness that had been setting in over the past week or months. Actually, it's not been weeks, it's been months. If we're being honest, going back to last season, that turgidness, it was just nice to see something different last night, and something fresh.
Yeah. Well, as a boy saying, Sriracha and Tinecti tormented the Falkirk defenders all night. They both must start on Sunday. I would agree with that. I don't think you can take Sriracha out of that team after what he did last night. I know after the game, Martin O'Neill talked about Kieran Tierney. He's got a bit of a niggle at the moment. He said it was stiffness more than anything. Obviously, he played at the weekend, but didn't feature last night. He said he's feeling a lot better. But for me, and this is not against Kieran Tierney. I mean, maybe Kieran Tierney is revitalised in his team as well. Let's not kid ourselves, that could easily happen. But I think going into this match, the fact that Kieran Tierney has these injury niggles, has this stiffness, and Sriracha was so effective last night, that you're looking at that game on Sunday and saying Sriracha needs to play at Hampden and see what you can do there. And notable as well, I think when Nygren going further forward and being more supportive of Kenny, allowed the wide players to be wider. They weren't getting dragged into the middle of the pitch by this kind of midfield three that gets in each other's way at times, and then the wingers get in each other's way too, and it's all just too centralised. You saw the wide players. The wide players were wide last night, Ryan, which again is something of a bit of breath of fresh air to an extent.
Back to basics for the wide men, but it worked a treat, which was great to see. There was more fluidity in the midfield, which allowed those wide players to do their job, do the job that they're most used to, which is getting balls into the box and defending those, and defending when required as well, getting back and defending. The 92nd minute last night, and Sriracha's making tackles and running. And it still looked like he had plenty in the tank. I really like his attitude. Every time I've watched him, his attitude's never been in question. Sometimes a lone player coming in, you can maybe question, is their heart fully in the move, but it's clear that he is fighting for the cause, and he wants to be playing games. He didn't come on the pitch against Hearts at the weekend, or I don't believe he did. So I think Kieran Tierney played the majority of the game, if not the full game.
But he played the full game, but he had a bit of stiffness at the end, Ryan, and that, I think that's
I know that he played through that. Martin O'Neill was making that point after the game. He wasn't feeling 100%, but he still pulled through and played the full game. But when it goes on form at the moment, I just don't like you said. I don't think that Celtic can afford to take Sriracha out of this team. One, for his individual performance, but two, that collective that he's got with Sebastian Tinecti. The two of them are really linking up well. They were passing at the right moments as well. They understood when one was going to go wide and overlap and try a ball into the box. They were passing at the right time, and they understood each other's game. If that's a connection, an early connection between those two players, then don't break it up. Keep it in the team, because there's been so many areas of the side this season that have been disjointed. If there's good chemistry and a good connection between those two players, then it would surely work in your benefit if you play the two of them on Sunday in a massive game at Hampden. For me, they both stay in the team, but who knows?
Sugarman making up the point that they had balanced the side for the first time this season. Still worry about it is without the ball, but it was much better. I mean, the balance in the team was clear, and you're kind of alluding to that there with the connections and people who was reading each other's game. I just thought Celtic, left to right, front to back, were just far more balanced and far more. Again, the midfield of late has either been far too distant from each other or in each other's way and far too tippy-tappy. So it's just, again, it was good to see something function well. I think the off-the-ball point is good because obviously there was moments in the game where Falkirk had a bit of joy, especially in that opening 30 minutes. Casper Schmeichel made a very good save when Celtic were 1-0 up. And I can understand why that would be concern for people going forward. I think what I'd say about that and say is like, the way that Celtic played last night, and at times under Ange as well, is like you're going to have those moments of chaos in a game, and really what you're betting on is that your team is better equipped to deal with those moments of chaos and deal with that openness than the opposition. And I think we saw a bit of that last night. So while there is a weakness there and against a better team, I really do think that against a better team, what happened last night might have been exposed more effectively, and I guess we might see some of that on Sunday. We might see some of that against Midtjylland. But it's really about banking on your players to thrive in those moments and show that quality when the game does open up, rather than just banking on something where you're looking to throttle the opposition and then it's really just becomes about finding that one moment or that one chance. So I understand the concern about some of the off-ball stuff last night, but I think overall you have to look at last night as a step forward. How do you see Sunday then, Ryan? Are you concerned about Rangers' ability to get at Celtic? Are you concerned about this? What's your feeling going into the match on Sunday?
It's a bit of a weird one to gauge because Rangers have got a new manager, but by all accounts last night Hibs were unlucky not to get anything from the game, so they can clearly still be got at, much like under their predecessor, Russell Martin. It seemed as if everybody could get at Rangers bar Celtic in that game at Ibrox, to be honest with you. So I'm expecting chaos on Sunday. Their new manager, Danny Rule, will be still working out his team, working out his best 11. So I think it makes for an intriguing game at the National Stadium on Sunday. I'm just hoping that the leaders of Celtic can pull through and just get a result. Both teams aren't perfect at the moment, not by any means. You just look at the league table and that would suggest that very fact, but you're just hoping that Celtic can manage the fixture better than their opponents and really hone in on Rangers' weaknesses, of which there have been plenty this season. The table doesn't lie, the results don't lie, the form, even though their form have picked up a little bit, it's still iffy. They can still be got at. So I would hope that Celtic can prey on that at the weekend. But likewise, Rangers will look at Celtic and think that they're a wounded animal and they can be got at. It's an intriguing fixture. I think it'll be an incredible game for the neutral to watch. We'll see how it goes. But early enough looking into it, three days before the fixture takes place, I'm feeling more optimistic than I was on Sunday, but it's one of those ones. We'll see how it goes on Sunday. I think anything could happen at Hampden on Sunday. It's a weird one to call.
And again, if the game does break down and does become chaotic and is very open or whatever, then it becomes about this simplicity in football of making good decisions in the moment. And Martin O'Neill's a big believer in that, and a big believer in personal responsibility for that as well. And listen, it's something Ange said a lot too, is like you have to have good decision making in the moment. Football, obviously football can be about systems and can be about exploiting weaknesses in other teams. That's a given. That's been the case forever since the day dot in football. But again, I do think you can overcomplicate it to an extent and hope that a system bails you out. And I just felt Celtic players were playing within a system that they felt they trusted was going to get them results, rather than showing the personal responsibility and stepping up to force a result, really. And now, last night, Sunday against Rangers, it's about forcing that result by any means necessary. And again, I just thought you saw signs of that collectiveness coming together. The way there was a few flashpoints in the game. It got quite heated at points, which is amusing because Celtic aren't typically like that against in a run of the mill, what should be a run of the mill Scottish Premiership game. So how that transfers into the derby is going to be massive. And again, it's just about good decision making in crucial moments and taking chances, Ryan. Taking chances, again, it sounds so basic and so simple, but that has been missing a lot from Celtic in these big matches of late. And you're just hoping that even last night just instills that little bit of belief in them that those chances will now be taken when they come along.
Those are the two big areas for me. And you talk about the sort of drama flashpoints, and I think Scott Arfield was involved heavily in that. I want controlled aggression from Celtic on Sunday. Be involved in the fixture, but control your emotions because it will be an emotive game. But also take your chances when they come along. They might be few. Well, actually, I say they might be few and far between. I think both teams will get chances at Hampden on Sunday. I think it's going to be that game. I think it's going to be pretty open between the two sides. So when those opportunities do come, whoever's leading the line, whether it be Dyson Maid or whether it be Johnny Kenny, they've got to get on the end of it and put the ball into the back of the net. But last night I was so impressed, just going back to the first point I was making there, I was so impressed by Celtic's aggression. There was more aggressiveness. They were fighting for each other. They were pressing to get the ball back. And, they had been pressing in games before, particularly the numbers against Sturm Graz were quite good in that regard for so many players working hard off the ball. But it seemed to be more of a controlled aggression last night. Players fighting for each other, people backing each other up, even when opposition players and the Celtic players are going head to head. I like that Celtic brought back up as well. Nygren was involved, but so was Arne Engels. Cal McGregor's involved in there as well. I love seeing that. As much as I enjoy looking at the data, I love seeing the aggressiveness of the players on the pitch as well. As long as it's controlled and as long as it's kept to a controllable level and range, then I've got absolutely no issues with it, and I was delighted to see that last night. I think that really resonates with the support, seeing players that are fighting for the cause and fighting for the badge, and it was good to see last night, particularly from guys like Benjamin Nygren, who've only joined the club recently. But I like the fact that he was involved with that. He picked up a yellow card for his troubles, but it was a good showing of his passion for Celtic, despite only being here 3-4 months.
Yeah, and I mean, what? So people are asking in the chat, what do you do with Daisameda now? Obviously came back off the bench last night. Is it him you go with through the middle? I mean, it would be harsh to drop Johnny Kenny, but do you go with Daisameda? Do you put him on the right? I don't think he's particularly effective on the right. That would be my concern, slotting him in there. I don't think you can drop Tenecte after last night. So what do you do with Daisameda going into the Rangers game?
It's an interesting one. For me, even though I don't think he's as effective on the right, that would seem like the most natural area at this moment, just due to form. The fact that Johnny Kenny scored those 2 goals, he'll be up for the Glasgow derby if he's picked by Martin O'Neill. You can't drop Tenecte at the moment on the left, and I'm glad that he got that goal last night to up his stats just ever so slightly. But his performances on the whole have been pretty positive since he joined the club. He's shown more positives than negatives when it comes to playing on the left wing for Celtic, so I don't think there'll be a change there. I think if he is going to play, if he is going to start the game, if he's ready to start the game, then I think he'll be on the right. But I could be proven wrong, and he could play through the middle. I'd be interested if he starts the game, to be honest with you, just the fact that he played half an hour. If he's ready, if he gets an extra couple of days of training and he's ready to go, then I've got no qualms with playing him against Rangers. But I think if he was playing, he'd probably play on the right, in my opinion anyway.
Liam Devine saying, I don't know if we can start Dyson because his link-up play up front isn't really there. We need a striker who can take the ball in, and Kenny isn't perfect, but he's more able for that than Maeda. I would start Maeda through the middle on Sunday, I think. As much as Johnny Kenny was excellent in taking his goals last night, I just think, again, if Celtic are going down this route of chaotic matches, then I don't think anyone's better suited to that than Daisameda in the Celtic team, especially if he's feeling more motivated again. Again, like only Martin O'Neill, only Sean Maloney will get a sense of that on training over the next couple of days. I'm not going to be tearing my hair out if it's Johnny Kenny, because that's the situation that Celtic are in. But my gut feeling is that Celtic should probably go with Daisameda. But I guess we'll see. So it's Natalie asking if Celtic have a game in hand. No, Celtic don't have a game in hand. Every team's played 10 games in the Scottish Premiership so far. So every team is on equal number of matches. Celtic are now 6 points behind Hearts. Rangers won last night, so they remain 5 points behind Celtic. So it's it was good, obviously, that Hearts dropped points last night. Ryan, they could have lost that game, but it just shows things can turn around quickly. It was so doom and gloom on Sunday, Monday. Suddenly Celtic are a couple of points closer. Martin O'Neill's in place, got a semi-final coming up, and the mood's lifted. Everyone's excited. I'm seeing some wild comments in the chat about 6-2s and all this sort of stuff. So the optimism has returned to many people, and that's all really Martin O'Neill could have done in this situation. Obviously the 3 points, but like beyond that, all he could have really done was brought a bit of positivity back to Celtic, and he's done so.
He's injected some much needed optimism, because there was so much pessimism, and quite right. I think it was realism as well as pessimism, because Celtic weren't in a good place, unfortunately, after Sunday. But they're in I'm not saying that they're in a great place now, because there's still stuff to deal with off the park. You had Dermot Desmond at the game last night. You would hope that he's mobilising to get a new manager through the door as soon as possible. There's a couple of people in the comments saying, would Martin O'Neill take the job on a full-time basis? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Martin O'Neill made it so abundantly clear that this is an interim role for him. It's important that Celtic find their next manager as soon as possible. But in the meantime, so far the first box has been ticked by Martin O'Neill, and yeah, hopefully he can tick a second one at the weekend. Listen, Martin O'Neill's legacy at Celtic will never be regardless of what happens in this interim period. It will never be tarnished. But it's a nice wee dose of nostalgia seeing him back in the dugout, and I'm glad that everybody had that moment at Celtic Park last night. A real galvanising moment, seeing Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, etc. in the dugout. Yeah, it was much needed. It was exactly what the doctor ordered. A healthy dose of optimism.
Tartan Headship saying Jordan Ryan's first chance to see Martin fit but enjoy. Listen, I appreciate the compliment, but it's certainly not my first time. Actually, I saw my Celtic win in the flesh. I saw Celtic win their first trophy under Martin O'Neill. I wasn't in the stadium when Celtic stopped 10 in a row. I wasn't at that game, but I was at the game where Martin O'Neill won his first league title with a 1-0 win over St Mirren. Tommy Johnson scored. I had a season ticket that year. I was at every game, and it was a formative year for my supporting life in Celtic, that season in particular. I remember all the hype around Martin O'Neill coming into the club, and this crest of a wave, and this being a transformative figure. And so certainly, again, that's what I enjoyed a lot about last night, was it felt like that again. It felt like going back to those days. Even if it's were one night only, that was worth it for me. It was fantastic.
I remember a wee bit of Martin O'Neill, just a tiny bit more Gordon Strachan, but I remember a tiny bit. I remember Jackie McNamara. I made this point yesterday on the briefing. I remember Jackie McNamara's testimonial. I believe it was against the Republic of Ireland 11. So that might have been a different era completely, but I seem to remember that being associated with Martin O'Neill. I can only remember little bits. I can remember Seville ever so slightly. That was like the very, very early days of me watching football. But yeah, I still get that nostalgia despite the fact, because you watch all the videos, you watch the old interviews, you watch the video, the actual videos, not even just videos on YouTube, but actual physical videos of Martin O'Neill's time at Celtic. So even though I wasn't like front and centre there the last time, you still get nostalgic seeing O'Neill, and you understand what he means to the football club. So you can't help but be, have that positive feeling seeing him back, and great that he started it off with a win last night.
So we move on now, and we've got more stuff coming up. We're deliberately not talking about any off-field stuff today, because I just didn't think it was the moment for it. I recorded the weekly podcast video with Hamish last night after the game, so that'll be going out later today, where we do talk about a bit more about the big picture at Celtic this week in terms of everything going on at the club. And I just wanted this show for at least to be a positive one, and kind of harness my feelings on what last night was. And I think it's okay to be positive this morning about Celtic. I don't think anyone, everyone understands that Celtic still have a bit of a hole to climb out of here. There's still massive decisions ahead, massive managerial decisions. There's question marks around the team and the quality of the squad and all of this stuff. But it's okay for one morning and one night to just go, that was a good game of football. I enjoyed that. Let's see what's next,
Completely echo everything that you said, and despite you're thinking about the off-field stuff as well, but it was nice to focus on the football for 90 minutes last night. Really a bit of a detox to everything that's going on outside of the football. Yeah, I echo all of your sentiments there exactly. It was nice to focus on a positive result for Celtic last night, and much needed.
Guys, if you enjoy what we do on the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's free. You just click subscribe on the button below. If everyone who was watching this subscribed in the next 5 seconds, it would be a massive boost to the channel, a massive boost to us and the job we do. So please consider it. If you watch us every day and you aren't subscribed, then please consider doing so. If you do subscribe, you get to join in with a live chat, which is a good community. And the live chat is subscribers only on YouTube. So if you want to get enjoy with the chat and get your comments up on the screen, then what you have to do is subscribe, and then you can start leaving your comments there. And yeah, that would be fantastic. And leave your comments below. We want to hear what you're feeling about Celtic at the moment, because there's so many different viewpoints and different opposing views on a lot of stuff. But how are you feeling this morning? How are you feeling about the Rangers game? That's what we want to hear from you in the comments below. As I say, we've got that weekly show with Hamish coming up. I have to say, it's quite interesting because I recorded that programme with Hamish like about 5 minutes after I listened to Martin O'Neill's press conference. And so you're catching me in an even better mood on that show, everyone. So enjoy that later on. I've been quite down about Celtic this week, and so Hamish knows that because I speak to Hamish quite regularly, and I think he was happy that I was a bit happier as well, because I think we were coming on to that show thinking this is going to be an hour of John moaning about Celtic, but thankfully it is not that. But as I say, we do touch on the bigger topics, so please check that out if you fancy it later on. Ryan, thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks for joining us live chat. We'll be back next time. Obviously, we've got a show tomorrow morning as well as the weekly podcast. Lots of stuff going up on the website. We've got an interview with Johnny Kenny later. We're going to have a look at Celtic's financial report, which was released in full this week. We've got lots of stuff coming up, so keep it tuned to celticway.co.uk as well. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. We'll see you next time on the Celtic Way.